Hello, and you are watching Uz Report World News with me, Davron Jumayev. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, during his regular meeting on March the 3rd, stressed the need to provide housing for all segments of the population and expand the opportunities for choice. According to plans unveiled at the meeting, the government will provide housing for 54,000 families this year. In particular, 45,000 houses are to be built under the state mortgage program.
Odamlarimizni niyatlari, istaklarini ko'p tahlil qildik. Kamida Uzbekistan sharoitida
We have not seen a construction program on such a scale to date. Therefore, each mayor should closely deal with the housing issues and have accurate calculation. The biggest issue is the fair pricing of housing. Our people are dissatisfied with the current prices, said Mirziyoyev. Mayors of regions, districts and cities were tasked with taking measures to ensure that the cost of a square meter of housing does not exceed $400. The meeting also considered the sources of financing for construction work. Over $1 billion is to be allocated this year towards these goals. There will be no shortage and no restrictions on financial resources for mortgage lending, said the president. Loans are set to be allocated for the construction and reconstruction of individual residential buildings for a period of 20 years. Low-income people can benefit from using subsidies to cover part of the interest. Moreover, the government intends to provide large benefits to both builders and home buyers. In particular, a 6-month grace period for mortgage loans is to be introduced this year. The down payment is to be reduced from 20 to 15%. Payments on loans that exceed the rate of 12% in Tashkent and 10% in other regions are also to be subsidized. The benefits granted to construction companies during the pandemic will be extended until the end of this year. The Entrepreneurship Support Fund is to provide construction organizations guarantees in the amount of up to $1.9 billion on loans for housing construction, as well as interest compensation in the part exceeding the base rate of the central bank. The meeting also touched upon the issues of providing families in difficult living conditions with housing on the basis of social rent. Regions are to be allocated funds for the purchase of thousands of apartments for rent. The most important issue is to create a fair system of fair application of the benefits provided, to raise awareness of our people about them, added Mirziyoyev. He urged creating public commissions with the participation of public activists to establish public control over the fair allocation of land to the developer, the formation of a list of needy families who are entitled to benefits, and the quality of construction.
Har bir viloyatda yakka tartibdagi uy-joy qurish uchun 500 tadan jami 6,5 mingta oilaga kredit ajratiladi.
On the same day, President Mirziyoyev received a delegation of the United Arab Emirates headed by the country's Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, Suhail Al-Mazroui.
Mirziyoyev, with satisfaction, noted the active efforts of both sides to implement the agreements at the highest level, primarily in the trade, economic, investment and financial spheres. Sincere gratitude was expressed for the assistance provided by the government of the Emirates in overcoming the consequences of the pandemic in Uzbekistan. In turn, Minister Suhail Al-Mazroui conveyed greetings and best wishes to the Uzbek leader on behalf of the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Khalifa Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Deputy Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Sheikh Mohammed Al Nahyan, and the Prime Minister, Emir of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum. He also thanked for the full support provided to the activities of Emirati investors in the Republic. Particular attention during the conversation was paid to the promotion of the joint projects involving private investment, including in the agro-industrial sector, the cultivation and processing of agricultural products with subsequent delivery to the Emirati market and to third countries. An agreement was reached to continue preparation and implementation of major projects in the field of alternative energy, modernization of energy and other important infrastructure facilities, construction of modern hotel complexes, as well as to increase the investment portfolio within the framework of new business initiatives and implementation of financial and technical assistance programs.
Uzbekistan has received 24 Uzbek refugees from Afghanistan who have been surviving in areas occupied by international terrorist organizations. The group had 19 children, of which 4 were orphans. This has been another initiative of the Meher humanitarian operation. The expats were placed in a healthcare center after medical examination. In the previous such activities, 155 women and children were returned to Uzbekistan from Syria in May 2019. Later in October, as part of Operation Meher 2, 64 children were brought home from Iraq. In December last year, 98 more women and children returned home by Operation Meher 3. Enterprises engaged in the electrical industry in Uzbekistan are set to enjoy tax benefits as President Shavkat Mirziyoyev inked a decree aimed at improving the effectiveness of the sphere. In particular, from April 1, 2021 to January 1, 2024, enterprises operating in this sphere are granted a 50% discount for income and property tax.
Until January 1, 2024, the government is to provide subsidies to cover 50% of the cost of transportation by road, rail and air. The government also plans to compensate part of the loans, with a maximum compensation amount being set at $1.9 million. Some 136 new projects are to be implemented in the sphere by the end of 2022. These, according to plans of the government, would create nearly 10,000 new jobs. In 2019, President Mirziyoyev urged the doubling of production capacities at electrical enterprises to bring exports to $500 million by 2022. He proposed expanding the production of refrigeration and heating equipment, computer equipment, mobile communications, solar panels, and other high-tech products.
Uzbekistan has improved its position in the Index of Economic Freedom compiled by the Heritage Foundation Research Institute. The country's economic freedom score is 58.3, making its economy the 108th freest in the 2021 index.
Uzbekistan's overall score has increased by 1.1 points, primarily because of an improvement in judicial effectiveness. Uzbekistan is ranked 21st among 40 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, and its overall score is below the regional and world averages. Kazakhstan has the best indicator among the Central Asian countries. According to experts, the economy in Kyrgyzstan is also freer. The Uzbek economy remained mostly unfree this year. In 2020, however, the government announced a new development strategy that includes reforming state institutions, securing the rule of law, reforming the judiciary, strengthening the banking and financial sectors, and other improvements such as reducing state regulation and assuring property rights to attract investment. If it proves successful, Uzbekistan could one day join the ranks of the moderately free. Analysts note that the judicial system has undergone some improvements. Nevertheless, state interference and corruption are still common, and bribery is widespread. Another area that requires reforms is international trade. According to experts, tariff and non-tariff barriers greatly hinder development. The country is still not a member of the WTO.
9 regional airports of Uzbekistan have announced tenders for organizing COVID-19 express testing. The limit prices range from $5 to $19 per test. Laboratories were better off to be installed on a competitive basis because of the growing number of complaints. To make the testing procedure as fast as possible, at least 2 laboratories are expected to operate at the checkpoints. A monument to the scientist Muhammad Al-Khwarizmi has been put up in the Turkish capital Ankara as part of the international program Kiva, the cultural capital of the Turkic world. The monument was erected in one of the parks, Lipovaya Dolina, which has a mosque, playgrounds and a Fergana cafe. Muhammad Musa Al-Khwarizmi is the founder of algebra. The great mathematician's treatise on arithmetic based on Indian numbers led to the decimal system of calculus and to the international spread of operations in this system. Zich Khwarizmi showed the development of astronomy in the countries of the West and East. Apophis, the most infamous and dangerous asteroid in history, is on its way to Earth. According to space scientists of NASA and other active laboratories in USA who have detected the event, the flyby of Apophis that is expected to happen this March 2021 won't be as stunning as the visit in 2029.
Apophis will come only 1/10 of the average distance between the Earth and the Sun, more than 40 times as distant as the Moon is from Earth. But scientists have big goals for Apophis 2029 flyby. And in order to get the most out of that opportunity, they need to know as much as possible about the space rock. This month's flyby will be their only chance to study this large space rock and predict the further outcomes for 2029. Scientists are excited. They have calculated just how rarely an object this large passes this close to Earth. This is something that occurs about once every 1,000 years, so obviously it is generating a lot of interest. Marina Brozokovic, a radar scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, says.
For months, scientists described how the arrival of breakthrough vaccines had sparked hope that the novel coronavirus could be largely contained. But data in recent weeks on new variants from South Africa and Brazil has undercut that optimism, with many now believing that SARS-CoV-2 will not only remain as an endemic virus, continuing to circulate in communities, but will likely cause a significant burden of illness and death for years to come. Among those changing their assumptions is Professor Chris Murray, a University of Washington disease expert whose projections on COVID-19 infections and deaths are closely followed worldwide. Murray told Reuters he, quote, couldn't sleep after seeing data from a recent vaccine trial in South Africa that not only showed that a rapidly spreading coronavirus variant could dampen the effect of a vaccine, but that it could also evade natural immunity in people who had been previously infected.
More problematic is the South African 351, which is moderately to severely reduced vaccine efficacy, about 5-fold or so.
The presence of variants has also prompted top U.S. infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci to urge the public to keep wearing masks, even after being vaccinated. On Wednesday, he discussed various approaches to variants, including Moderna's clinical trial of a third booster shot, but indicated that the Holy Grail might still be some time away.
And finally, the last is one that we look to the future, namely a universal coronavirus vaccine, one that would handle variants of SARS-CoV-2 and that would hopefully be able to address other pandemic coronaviruses in the future.
Murray said if the South African variant or similar mutants continue to spread rapidly, even with vaccines, the number of COVID-19 cases resulting in hospitalization or death next winter could be 4 times higher than the flu.
The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill on Wednesday called the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. Democratic Representative Karen Bass co-wrote the legislation.
One of the goals of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act is to raise the standards of policing in America and also to transform the culture.
The law would ban controversial police tactics and make it easier to sue police officers for violating suspects' constitutional rights. The bill includes measures which would restrict funds to local governments that allow chokeholds, ban no-knock warrants, and require police agencies to provide data on the use of deadly force. Its most controversial provisions would change qualified immunity for police, making it easier to sue police for excessive use of force. Its prospects of passing in the Senate remain uncertain. Conservatives have attacked the bill, saying it would be dangerous for police officers and community safety. Democrats pushed the bill through the House by a vote of 220 to 212, with only one Republican vote in favor, Representative Lance Gooden. Later that night, he tweeted his vote had been a mistake and he actually opposes the bill. The House vote came just days before former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin goes on trial for murder in the death of Floyd last year. Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, died when he was detained with Chauvin kneeling on his neck for nearly 8 minutes. His death sparked weeks of global protests, many led by the organization Black Lives Matter.
Hissei Onuma's home withstood the earthquake 10 years ago, which unleashed a tsunami that wrecked the Fukushima nuclear plant and forced her and 160,000 others to flee their homes. She returned recently to check on her old house. Its roof is now close to complete collapse, and a bamboo had penetrated through the former living room.
I'm almost 70 years old, so I don't think it's possible for me to live here. There's no base for a life here. I can't go shopping, and there's no hospital, so I can't imagine building a life here.
Japan's government has turned Fukushima's recovery into a symbol of national revival ahead of the Tokyo Olympic Games, and is encouraging residents to return with financial aid as it decontaminates the land. But lingering worries about the nearby nuclear plant, lack of jobs, and poor infrastructure is keeping many away.
I want to say to the government, please don't solve the problem with money. We should be treated like human beings, not animals. They feed us with money to shut us up. It shouldn't be like this. We want to live like human beings. That is what I really want to say.
Anuma declined to claim her compensation, unwilling to be treated as a Fukushima refugee dependent on Tokyo Electric's handouts. She now lives as a vegetable farmer near the capital and insists on building a life with her own hands.
There's nothing that lets me feel secure enough to continue making a living. But now, since there are people who come to me to buy vegetables, that's the easiest way for me to make a living, by delivering vegetables to them daily. That's a life with hope.
The Nasdaq ended sharply lower on Wednesday after investors sold high-flying technology shares and pivoted to sectors that stand to benefit from an economic recovery. The Dow and S&P 500 also fell, with Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon weighing on the S&P. Meanwhile, government bond yields ticked higher, reflecting investors' optimism about the economy, but hurting growth stocks, which have relied on easy money borrowing to fuel their rise. J.J. Kinahan, chief market strategist at TD Ameritrade, says investors are weighing the impact of higher bond yields and what they mean for stocks.
I think where it's really heading is people trying to figure out what to do right now. What I mean by that is you saw this sharp increase in bond yields over the last few weeks. And at the same time, what's been tough for people to figure out, if there have been many days where bond yields are higher and so is stocks, or bond yields are lower and so is stocks. That's not a normal relationship. So what that tells me is that right now you're seeing a little bit of a adjustment of assets, if you will.
Travel stocks, including American Airlines and Carnival Cruises, jumped more than 3%. Meanwhile, Lyft bucked the tech trend, rising more than 8% after the ride-sharing company reported strong February ride figures and said it's seeing ride-sharing recover sooner than expected. Its optimism also helped lift shares of its rival, Uber.
These were the top headlines for today. Stay safe and goodbye.